Hey, no.
Pod crash.
Hey, no. Hey,
Get cooking now.
hey, no. Hey, 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 no. Hey, Okay, here we are again, back behind the microphones.
Yep.
I'm Graham.
I'm Ashkahn.
And I'm Juliet.
That's right.
Oh.
We have
Didn't see that
a
coming.
third host.
Bet you didn't see that coming.
An occasional host, if you will, on the podcast. And Juliet's joining us because we have an exciting non-question to answer.
Yep.
Non as in not a question.
Well, we don't answer any questions anymore.
Right. Yeah, so all of them are kind of non-questions.
It's
So-
just statements now.
Yeah, what we're really doing right now is we're hoping to get people to fill out our industry survey, which we do every year. And you can do that.
Just to clarify, we're giving people the honor of being able to fill out our industry survey.
That's true. It's really a privilege to be able to.
There we go. Yeah, this is the right.
Yeah,
I think,
it
kind of
it
tack.
is because it helps the industry in a huge way, which we'll get into a little bit later. But if you want to get started now, you can go to floatanksolutions.com/survey and fill out the industry survey if you're an existing center or just planning to start one. And if you're looking to expand an existing practice by adding float tanks to it. So
And if you're like planning on starting a center, maybe we don't have a survey for you yet, but you can go and just take a look. Just sort of like take a look at the survey, dip your toe in the water, see if you like what you see.
Think about it for a couple years.
Yeah, and then come back and when you're ready, when you're actually planning, you know where to go.
yeah, it can be a really useful primer for figuring out what direction you should be looking
Actually,
at.
that is true. If you're even thinking about planning, if you're planning to plan, go download the survey and just read the past years of results.
Do you think those people are listening to this podcast?
I hope so.
Oh boy, yeah, it's hard to reach people who are planning to listen to your
Yeah.
podcast as part of the
Because they don't
problem
know.
here.
I mean, they don't
right,
know.
they're just planning on it.
We're
Yeah.
future-proofing this for people who find the episode later because they heard about if you're planning to plan on having a float center, then you should listen to this episode. So people
Pretty
from the
smart of
future,
us. Yeah.
people from the future, hi, welcome. So glad you found us. And now you know what to do.
And it's pretty cool. So we've been doing this for a few years, since 2014, which that'll make this the sixth survey that we've actually accumulated, which is pretty cool. And it really is a privilege on our part, actually, to be able to release this. And it's one of the things, we have a lot of kind of various free sources of information, this podcast included, on float tank solutions. And I honestly think the industry report has the broadest reach and the biggest impact, actually, on people's lives and on both future float centers and existing float centers for things they're able to accomplish that they couldn't without the industry report. So
Yeah.
really impactful, and you do get to be a part of it.
Yeah. It only takes a few minutes to fill out the survey, and every bit of information that you can put out there being as accurate as possible, which shouldn't be hard. It should be everything that you already know about your center and running it. It's just jotting it down real quick.
It's like, when your teacher called on you in class and you didn't know the answer to the question and you get all stressed out. It's like the opposite of that. Like the questions will make you feel really good because you definitely know the answers to them and you can fill them out really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling is what I'm saying.
It is. It's a good
It's another one of those privilege to take this kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And it really is just the best thing that you can do to help the industry. Right now, there aren't a whole lot of people collecting data like this, and I think we're the only people that put out any sort of report like this.
I do. I put out my own separate
Okay.
Ashkahn's Float Jam.
Not
a lot of people have really been picking it up yet, but I think it's going to be pretty big. So I just wanted to throw that out there, ashkahnsfloatjam.com.
Yeah. So with this...
You can find that link in our show notes.
Oh, damn it.
As well as just like a water buffalo having a tea party with a giraffe, like a drawing of a water buffalo having a tea party with a giraffe with some sort of either water buffalo or giraffe or tea pun included in their dialogue. It's going to be in the show notes.
Yeah, it sure is. So the industry survey is it's gotten better every single year, and we've had more.
And it wasn't bad to begin with.
It was
Am
great.
I right here?
Yeah.
Am I right?
It was great to begin with, and it's gotten even better. And we've gotten better at collecting data and
It's true.
asking useful questions, which makes this the best possible year to hop into answering the industry survey. And do you want to share some of the things that the report has been used for float centers so that they can get an idea of what this goes towards?
Boy, do I. Well, I mean, just on the float center side, as far as being useful to people getting started and in conversations, or even for existing centers that are expanding, this is one of those resources that banks really like to see. And it's actual data, not just taking some person who's applying for a loan's word for what's going on in the industry. And the fact that we have this year-over-year data that's coming out and is very consistent and shows this growth in the industry and positive trends ends up legitimately making it so that more float tank centers can open and actually get funded with loans. Like, we've had personal emails come in from people saying this survey alone was really helpful in showing that the bank or their loan officer that they weren't just crazy, that there's a whole industry out there and it is in fact a successful one. So that's one of them for sure.
Yeah, we also get a ton of, just like the news, contacting us asking for exactly this. Like, we get various people wanting to write some sort of story on floating and the float industry, and they're curious if there are any like statistics on the float industry, and it's great that we actually have this to pass along to them. It's like exactly what they're looking for when they contact us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and similarly, as loans, people getting leases for buildings, really like anything that you have to go out and apply for, these kind of industry stats just make you seem that much more legitimate and make it more likely that you can get, again, like a good lease on your building or better terms even on your loan or get approved at all. So very cool.
And the real-time result of this, or I guess release of it, is always coincides with the float conference. So if you do go to the float conference, you can stop by the Float Tank Solutions booth and pick up a hard copy of it, which is awesome. And they're really pretty. They're just this like nice glossy paper, and it looks really nice. You can take
graphs,
that ton of graphs.
We're talking pie graphs. We're talking line graphs, maybe. I mean,
this year,
Mostly bar
actually,
and
scatter
pie,
plots.
yeah. Not so much.
Cake graphs. I mean, it's really, there's some good stuff in there. You guys, it's gonna be
cherry,
great.
apple.
You graphophiles are you're gonna love it.
They're sexy graphs, is what.
Yeah, good curves. So, we're doing some fun things that's new this year that I think is worth going over as well.
Before we talk about the new things, do you want to talk about some of the questions that we always ask so that people have an idea of
Sure.
what useful information is out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's things like, what is your spirit animal?
That's not in there.
Sorry, wrong list. Hold on one second. Switch for my personal health group. How many tanks people have, how long construction took them, how much revenue they're pulling in.
How many employees you have, how long it was before you hired your first employee, or basically your questions about other questions
What are you
about
talking about?
float center related data, all sorts of stuff.
What type of marketing has been most useful?
Yeah, number of floats people run on average per float tank. If there's additional practitioner services or non-practitioner services added on.
There's one question in there that will help us identify if you are a reptilian or not, and so
don't tell
this
them
is
which
proof.
one, though. Don't
I
tell
know
them
you
which
won't know
one.
which one, but we're on to you now. We're on to you,
And we have some interesting data compiled from previous years on reptilian plans. So,
so that's it. I mean, we have the proof now.
Great. And that's just for existing centers. Future centers have a whole slew of questions that we ask them as well, as including how many tanks they're planning on having and and how they learned about floating, and seeing how those things track compared to what people actually
Reality,
experience
yeah.
is often a fun kind of comparison, but it's also really useful just finding out where people are at. And since we've been releasing the report, some of those numbers have gotten a little more accurate. I think we're tempering people's expectations sometimes, which
Yeah,
is
I think there's actually kind of this beneficial feedback loop going into the industry report where, because they get to look at data from previous years, their answers to some of the questions about what they're expecting when they open their center and how many floats they think they're going to run and stuff like that, all of a sudden it started drifting a little more into reality. Yeah, you look at the answers of some of the first couple years of the industry report, and it's just like the existing center's data and what a prospective center thinks is going to happen are just like on two polar opposites. So it has actually been cool seeing those get close together. You're right, it is some pretty hilarious data to kind of look at the trends over the years.
yeah. And yeah, I think. Do you want to talk about changes now? Do we have anything else you want to talk about?
No. Go right into changes.
Change it up.
Okay. So this year is going to be the first year that we're going to be doing a cross-year analysis, which is pretty cool. Since we've been doing it for 6 years now, and
The old CYA.
yeah, we're going to be.
That's what that stands for.
Yeah, that is
Yep,
what
that
that
is.
stands.
If you ever hear that, that's what it's cross-year analysis. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good thing that you clarified that. It's a real CYA answer.
Yep. Real cross-year
That
analysis
doesn't make-
answer.
that doesn't
Yep.
make sense. I don't understand.
It was a cross-year analysis answer.
Yeah, like
Like,
literally.
next year, we're going to record another podcast, and we're going to reference this sentence in there. Is that what you're saying?
I get it. Does that make it work in your mind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
Then
that's
yeah.
what I'm
It makes me
saying.
feel really
yes,
good about
I'm
it.
saying it.
Cool. All right. I'm writing it down.
Carry on.
And since our data has been getting better every single year, because every single year we've had more and more respondents, which gives us a more accurate view of the industry, then this year, when we do our cross-year analysis, what we're going to see is just how much the industry has grown, how much it's changed, and what we could probably expect in the future as far if trends continue, which is really
It
cool.
will make us into fortune tellers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that how you become a Fortune 500 company?
It is. If you can
Oh.
predict your own future.
Nice.
Or really the future of
Anything.
yeah.
About
Yourself and at
500
least
companies in the floating industry.
499 other companies.
Yeah,
Cool,
better
this is
than
it.
them. Yeah.
Man, I finally.
Yeah. And then do you want to talk about the exciting change that we're having for Helm customers?
Not really.
Okay.
I will. You know
Oh,
what?
okay. Yeah.
I'll rise to that
All right,
challenge.
all right.
Yeah, so this year we are also including the option for Helm customers who are doing their scheduling through the Float Helm to contribute and let their stats from Helm be aggregated so we can collect data that's a little more precise and see, for example, when we're asking how many floats people run, with everyone who's giving us access to the Helm, which is already, I believe, over 50 different centers.
Yeah.
And we're pretty early in the collection process. So we're going to get a lot of good data on exactly what the average amount of floats that goes through a tank in a month is, for example. Even that per size of center and how that relates to cost or type of membership. So just the sheer amount of very precise data that we can pull out is going to be great. And again, it's totally aggregate, totally anonymized, and yeah, if you are a Helm customer, I really strongly suggest you think about giving access to that. And yeah, again, we should have some really, really cool stuff coming out that's a little more than just self-reporting, which as far as what banks are after, that'll really help. Like anything that we can do to prove that these are real numbers and not just stuff that people are kind of saying off the top of their head when they're sitting down to breakfast is awesome.
Everybody who looks at hard data or data in general does not always trust self-reporting.
Yeah, for
So the thing that's
sure.
useful
I wonder why.
Yeah.
the thing that's useful with self-reporting is getting a large collection pool, which we've been doing better and better at every single year. And so even if you're not a Helm customer, answering the survey and providing as much information as you can is incredibly helpful. And it helps round out the rest of the answers as well and add a little weight to the whole report, sometimes literally because it keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, fun stat on that, actually. It started as just a 19-page report, and it was about equal between existing centers and prospective centers for what we asked them. And over time, that existing center, especially side of things, has really grown, and so it's up from 19 pages to 56 pages was last year's.
Boom. That's a bunch of more pages.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
That is the precise ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's going to be even more this year with the Helm stat, with the cross-year comparison. So, yeah, every year it also just grows in literal, weight.
Yeah, and it's been really exciting to work on, and it's been an absolute privilege to get to put this together. Honestly, I personally kind of recognize just how important this is for the industry when working on it, and it's I think if people go into answering the survey with that same sort of weight, it can help you get a personal connection to the report and maybe the industry as a whole.
You will love the report.
Yeah.
And it will love you.
I know.
That's
I do know.
basically what we're talking about here. We're forming a deep, deep bond.
Well, the industry is already so connected, right? It's not like other businesses. It's the float industry, and it's kind of like a family. And surveys are not typically things that you do with your family, but maybe
You haven't met my family.
I do know your family.
The yearly Jerome survey, 31 pages for all of us kids. Oh, man. Sorry, you really got me with the survey. It's not something you usually do with your family. I'm like, yeah, that isn't the most familial thing.
But
Sorry, where were you going with that? Yeah, I didn't mean to
For
interrupt,
this-
but it was just funny.
for this family, it really does help. It's it helps everyone, and it's just really cool, and it's such an easy thing to do. Again, that's floattanksolutions.com/survey.
And just to end with a couple fun stats for you.
Yeah.
As long as I'm on the whole stat train, and
Yeah.
we're winding things down. So, as far as growth, we started with just 56 centers, existing centers, who filled it out, which is also a sign of the industry back in 2014, but and people who were kind of actively big enough to report. And that grew to 293 float centers that were reporting in from last year, which is really exciting.
Yeah,
So
many bunches more.
hopefully we can get more than that this year. Again, this isn't mandatory or anything like that, even though we should make it
That would
mandatory.
be cool.
Turns out, no, we're not just allowed to pass laws. There is no float police. But just voluntarily, that's amazing. So even if we don't hit that high a number, it won't necessarily mean the industry is going down or anything, but you can be a part of making sure that number continues to grow. And so far, every single year, the number of existing centers who have filled it out has done nothing but go higher, which is another one of these things that looks great to the media and looks great to banks and building owners. So again, hugely helpful. And just a sign of that as well is our first survey had 9 people who filled it out who had funded their center in some way with bank loans. Last year, we had 122 people who had gotten bank loans for funding some part of their float tank center.
So almost half.
Yeah, exactly. Almost half, as opposed to, like a fifth before. And just the sheer volume of bank loans that are actually going out and helping people start their float tank centers is really amazing. And again, this industry report is a big part of allowing them to get funding and prove that this industry is real and valuable and thriving. So again, hugely beneficial. Please take just a few minutes to go to floattanksolutions.com/survey. Select whether you're an existing center or prospective one.
And don't forget to go to ashkahnfloatjam.com to fill out that survey. It's equally important.
That one, how long does that one take to fill out?
That one takes like maybe 3 to 4 years. And we do it annually, so you're going to have to start a couple of them at the same time to really make sure that you're able to do it. So that part's, I haven't really figured that part out yet. But that part, it's going to be really good when the
It
first
sounds
one
very
comes
thorough,
out.
I will say that.
Super thorough. Yeah.
What do you think Ashkahn's favorite type of jam is? What do you meant by the jam?
It is actually all jam related, but I'm working the float thing in there somewhere soon too.
So
Is it like different types of floats, like root beer floats and
Parade floats.
parade floats?
Yeah,
And...
that's a good
it
idea.
might take 5 years at that rate. Awesome. So again, floattanksolutions.com/survey.
And
floattanksolutions.com/survey.
yeah, just it. And the cool thing is, like, I hope now that we've explained the direct impact that this has, that maybe people are maybe more excited, if possible, to answer these questions.
I hope they're feeling very floattanksolutions.com/survey about it personally.
Yeah, I mean, I floattanksolutions.com/survey as well.
All right, everyone. We're going to floattanksolutions.com/survey you later.
Yeah, and don't forget to floattanksolutions.com/survey.
/survey?
Yeah.
Okay.
floattanksolutions.com/survey.